Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Eventual Consistency. So there's this data point making the rounds at the moment that sounds more dramatic than it probably is, but that gap between the headline and reality is exactly where this episode lives. So for the first time, Big Four accounting firms are posting more job ads for AI specialists than for auditors. Nearly 7% of Deloitte, EY, KPMG, and PwC's job listings now require AI skills. Audit roles sit at under 3%. Graduate intake is down 30% at KPMG, and equity partners are being quietly demoted. The global chairman of PwC is telling the BBC he can't find the engineers that he needs. So the natural read here is that AI is eating audit from the inside. But in this episode, Ross Katz from Credence and I spend some time pulling that narrative apart. What we find is that the more interesting story isn't about how audit is going away, but it's about how the value chain is being restructured, where AI compresses the analysts and production phases, but actually creates more work in the judgment and synthesis phase, not less. It's about Credence goods and why a name at the top of an audit sheet still matters in ways that AI can't change. It's about the difference between a one-time reset and a permanent contraction. And it's about why your 3-month AI rollout timeline probably needs revisiting. Not because AI is hard, but because trust is, and trust takes time. So Ross, let's get into it. So Ross, obviously the FT has found that AI roles are now nearly 7% of Big Four job postings, which is over 3 times an increase since 2022. Does that fact surprise you?
No, I can't say that it surprises me. I mean, to me, this headline and the study is, perfectly crafted from a journalistic perspective, because it's the sort of thing that, like, when you read it as a headline, you're like, oh, this is really interesting. That's amazing. I can't believe these Big Four audit firms are investing in so much in so much AI capability. But then you look under the hood a little bit, and it's like, okay, the growth rate's really, really high, which means the denominator matters, which means that, it was starting from a very low base, and now, so the headline is really Big Four accounting firms are hiring people to do AI work, which honestly, I think all companies and all professional services companies either are or should be hiring people to do AI work. And the reason is because it's not because AI is going to eat audit, which is like the thing that journalistically you want to gesture at with a number like this. It's because internal automation is beneficial to you regardless of what the capabilities of these models end up doing. Because, the worst case scenario, if you automate a lot of things internally, is just that, you become more efficient. And as a result of becoming more efficient, you're able to scale up even bigger than you could before, or you're able to do more with fewer people. And so hiring people to help you do internal automation using AI is really important. But also, if you see on the horizon the possibility, the potential that you might be forced into a business model change because the number of hours it takes you to conduct an audit or do an accounting screen are much lower, then what's the first thing you want to do? As a company like this, you want to solidify your cost basis and you want to see how repeatable these processes can be. And so that's why you hire people to do AI work, is because you need to get all of your data in order, all of your processes in order. You need to consider how you rework those processes in order to integrate AI, in order to make that cost basis more predictable. And then and only then would you consider, on a selective basis, changing your business model from something that's more hourly to something that's more fixed fee or outcome based or subscription based. So in the meantime, you're still going to charge by the hour. So you still have to charge for more hours in order to grow. That's the thing about professional services firms and charging by the hour, is that, a person only has a certain number of hours in a day. So if you want to charge more hours, you need more people in seats. And so my expectation is basically that, yes, AI jobs are growing inside of these firms, but at least for the foreseeable future, you're not going, that doesn't mean that you're going to hire fewer auditors until your organization is in a place where you have determined that you can continue to grow, you can make more money with the same number of auditors that you had previously. So that is not what I think we're seeing, although that's what the headline gestures at. But I do think that, what's going on here is basically that, laying the groundwork, a little bit of risk management and a little bit of preparation for the opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, this also touches obviously junior hires, right? So I think, part of the article was around KPMG have cut graduate intake by around 30%, Deloitte by about 22%, EY by 11%. And I think there were some leaked internal documents that show PwC has plans to cut entry-level hiring by almost a third over the next couple of years. And so, yeah, I mean, what do you think? Is this is it like a temporary recalibration, or is it the beginning of something more permanent in relation to the junior workforce?
Yeah, so I think there's two things that I would think about here. First, and these are sort of unanswered questions as of today, so I think it's important to hold them somewhat lightly. The first idea that I would think about is AI better for experts? It makes experts 10 times more powerful while everybody else kind of stays the same, or is it better at lifting the floor for people who don't have the level of experience and judgment and expertise that the more senior partners at an organization like this would have? So if it's better for experts, if your experts are getting so much more leverage from AI, then yes, I think in the long term, you'll see these big accounting firms, the nature of the way that their firms are structured will change, because historically, David Meister managing the professional services firm, the thing that you talked about was how to get leverage on your junior people. Like, you hired a bunch of smart junior people, and then you wanted to maximize the amount of work that those junior people took on, because the more junior people that a senior partner could oversee effectively to deliver high quality work to clients, ultimately the larger the profit margin for the firm. You want your lowest price people doing the highest amount of work. So if those experts are becoming super experts and they can now manage a bunch of AI agents to do the work rather than managing a bunch of junior people, then those junior roles are going to get squashed. But if AI is actually just lifting the floor for more humans to do more, or for the same number of humans to do more work, without having gotten that expertise thus far, then actually what you're going to see is just that one-time recalibration, where right now they're figuring out what that ratio looks like, what they're reorienting their processes to consider how work looks in the future now that this new capability exists. Once they figure out that they need juniors, and that those juniors actually can get as much or more leverage than experts can get, then they'll go back to hiring highly intelligent, AI capable people directly out of college or directly out of whatever graduate program. And so my view is that it's a combination. So, we're looking at more of a one-time reset. The other lens that I would use to understand this is like the value chain, a professional services firm, like an audit firm. So it starts with origination, like, can you find the clients? Then it's like analysis and production. Can you consume the documents they provide to you? Can you produce the documents that they need to get back? Then there's some degree of judgment and synthesis that comes after that. And then there's like a relationship / trust / sign off phase. So what AI does is it compresses the analysis and production portion of this value chain. It does not change the nature of the origination, the judgment and synthesis, or the relationship and trust / sign off portion of this value chain. So, if your model of the world is juniors do analysis and production, senior partners do everything else, then obviously you would think to yourself, well, we're going to need fewer juniors. But also, like, the value is going to concentrate at the ends. So we should be rather than hiring 10 new juniors, we should hire one super partner who's going to be able to do better origination, better judgment, and better, trust and sign off processes. But so, like, I think in the short term, that makes sense as a response to what they're seeing on the ground as the likely impact of AI. But I think what's actually happening is that this oversimplified view of the value chain neglects the fact that as AI produces more in the analysis and production phase, there needs to be even more work in the judgment and synthesis phase in order to verify and account for what's happened in analysis and production. And so I just think that the nature of the junior roles is going to change to something that is more verification and synthesis oriented and less analysis and production oriented. And the job of the seniors is going to be to impart the knowledge for judgment and synthesis to the juniors rather than expecting that they're just going to be able to do the procedural stuff that they might have been able to do right out of their graduate programs.
This points to, I think, an interesting tension that was also brought up in the article and in the report, which was around the availability of talent market space. I think it was the chairman or the global chairman of PwC, Mohammed Kandi. He said that, we're looking to hire all of these experts to come and help drive our AI agenda, but we just can't find them. And so what does that tell you about where the professional services industry sits in the talent market relative to, let's say, the tech market?
Another thing that's happening is they're sort of stagnating their junior salaries. They're professional services firms have not raised their junior salaries over time, and so the market for the market for AI talent is so hot right now that you have to want to go out and get people who have this degree of talent. Also, it's been around for such a short period of time that if you're really focused on finding somebody with 10 years of generative AI integration experience, well, generative AI has not existed in its current form for 4 years, let alone 10 years. So what you're really looking for, and you're maybe not in a good position to judge, is what kind of capabilities does this person have, and how have they demonstrated those capabilities previously, and how much of a bet are you willing to take on someone who's learning really quickly and maybe doesn't have a ton of experience to be able to navigate your internal landscape and implement AI in ways that are going to get adopted across the organization, that are going to fundamentally standardize and make more efficient these processes. And those are just hard hires to find. And I think that in a fast-moving technology landscape, where there are a lot of companies who are very used to sitting on the sidelines and letting the talent play out before they jump in, that are being asked to move faster and with more risk to make human resources hires than they would otherwise make. And another point I would make is just that this study that we're looking at is based on job posts that are put out there in the market, which is not just I post job, therefore I hire person. There's other roles that these job postings do, which is signaling to the market that you're investing in AI. And so, you put the job requisition out there, you see if anybody comes who really makes you excited. And then if they don't come, then you can complain loudly about how there's not enough great AI talent out there. But really it's that, your sense of urgency about this transformation is not low, but maybe lower than the message you're trying to send to your clients about how all in you are on AI is going to look. So, I think that it makes sense that these organizations should be trying to make work more standardized, make themselves less reliant on specialists, while also building their proprietary data moats, so getting their internal data in order and getting their systems to shadow humans so that they can capture the data to automate processes over time. And I believe that they want to do that. But the path between wanting to do that and being willing to invest strategically in it, I think, is going to vary from organization to organization.
Yeah. I mean, do you think this presents an opportunity? So, and what I mean by that is, I'm thinking of compensation strategy for data teams. And I'm thinking if you're competing against the big four, right, for the same kind of talent pool, which is limited, do you have a window to try and win people over who previously have defaulted to a big four offer when this industry is showing, to your point, I guess, stagnant, if any, growth in regards to salaries and compensation? Is there a window there for other technology businesses or smaller brands perhaps to win talent that otherwise would have just defaulted to going to a KPMG or to whoever?
I think that's probably the case. I also think it's possible for, small and middle market audit firms or other professional services firms that would previously have had difficulty taking on the scale of work that, a big four audit firm can take on to win business by winning talent and by, being faster to orient themselves around AI automation than other ones. But I also think that, audit in particular, there's like three kinds of goods in economics. You've got like search goods where the quality is verifiable before you purchase the thing. Then you've got experience goods where it's verifiable after you make the purchase. And then you've got credence goods where you can never fully verify it, but you have to trust the company that gave it to you based on their reputation that they've given you the right thing. And audit is like your textbook credence good. It's, clients are paying for the name of the big four accounting firms to be on the top of that, like on the top of that sheet. And so that's the kind of competitive moat that AI isn't really going to change. So to a certain extent, I understand why a larger audit firm would be more conservative, because the AI doesn't change fundamentally the nature of their competitive landscape the way it does in some of these other industries. But you could also see that as an opportunity for disruptive firms, that maybe the market for audit is changing and more companies are going to get audited or need to be audited that don't need the name of PricewaterhouseCoopers or Ernst & Young at the top of that sheet. And so there's like the Clayton Christensen, opportunity for something that is technically of a lower quality, but really it's just that, like, from a credence perspective, it doesn't carry the same degree of credence, but it's more automated, it's more subscription based. We've been expecting something like this to come about in the legal domain for a while. Maybe it's going to happen, maybe it's not going to happen, but like, I think people can see on the horizon the opportunity for that. And I can't say whether or not that's going to shake out, but what I will say is that, like, fundamentally in this credence goods ecosystem, like, people expect the firm to be accountable for the outcome of the audit, and that's why the credence matters. If the client if the client is willing to take the accountability, then the credence of the firm doesn't really matter that much. If the regulatory regime changes where your risk of getting sued goes substantially down if you use one of these automated accounting firms, then that changes the nature of it too. But with the landscape as it stands currently, a company that's already using Ernst & Young is probably not going to switch to a non-Big Four accounting firm, because that name at the top is so important.
No one ever got fired for hiring KPMG.
Right, exactly.
So let's follow this thread a little bit and talk about kind of like the role of artificial intelligence in auditing, and whether you're seeing progress or whether you think it's theater. So we've got KPMG with their Clara platform. It's now got AI integrated across, I think they said, more than 95,000 auditors globally. You've got EY's Helix Glad tool scanning databases up to 100 million entries. Are these, from your point of view, genuinely changing audit quality, or are they layering technology onto a process that hasn't really fundamentally changed? You've already touched on this a little bit, but let's build it out a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that I am not in a position to speak to the quality of the AI applications that the Big Four accounting firms have put into place. So I just want to stipulate that before I talk about them. My expectation is that they are scaffolding existing processes and existing software applications with AI in order to speed up the human workflows, speed up the integrations with clients for example, ingesting documents, putting them in formats that are easy to access, easy to query, easy to find what you're looking for in those documents, and then also putting the human in a position where they can verify very quickly what the system is finding, so that we're going from what was fundamentally like an unstructured or a semi-structured workflow to a workflow that has a lot of structure and much more standardization, little things that you can click that accelerate the tasks within that work stream in order to get to the final outcome. But what it's not doing, to my knowledge, and will likely not be doing for the foreseeable future, is executing every task end to end without human oversight at all. And this is what a lot of people are talking about this idea, but I'll just restate it. A job or an occupation are just a bundle of tasks, and AI automates at the task level, but not the whole job. And AI is not perfect at the task level. It may be above human quality at the task level, but if you let AI do the task and then you have a human verify it, what you get is typically a higher quality output across a lot of different tasks. But if there are still tasks within a job that require the human to execute the task, then the job fundamentally can't go away. It's just that their time allocation within that job changes. And this is happening across the economy. I think the audit workflow is just one example of this. And what we'll see over time as companies attempt to rework their processes and understand where human capital is most valuable in, delivering what the client expects, is we'll see occupations restructure into different bundles of tasks that, are obviously going to have a much higher verification component for verifying the outputs of AI, but also are going to be sort of natural bundles of skills where a person can be expected to do the human aspects of these tasks. And in doing that rebundling, the entire process, the entire workflow, the entire organization becomes more efficient. I think David Autor is the economist who's also quoted in the article, who talks about this framework, or who researches this framework. And so I think it is great for all of these accounting firms to be trying to envision their workflows as a series of tasks, documenting those tasks in the form of software, and integrating AI on top of that software in a way that makes sense to accelerate and improve the quality with which, and standardize the approach to audit. However, like, the judgment required in those verification tasks, the judgment required in evaluating the final output, is still going to be a critical component. And so the question is, in audit or consulting or law, how much of a given role is like codified, is expressible as, one or a very small sequence of if-then rules for a given tasks, versus how much of it is judgment laden, and you really need to rely on a human to detect the nuance in what they're looking at. And the more codified it is, the more exposed the tasks are to being automated, and the more judgment laden they are, the more protected the tasks and the jobs containing those tasks will be with the emergence of AI.
Yeah, you've kind of like half answered what was going to be my next question, which was around accountability, because the liability for errors that are manifested through AI tools, like, who do they fall on? Do they fall on the developers? Do they fall on the vendors? Do they fall on the deploying businesses, the professionals, end users? I don't think there's like a clear-cut answer, at least legally speaking, for that. And I guess this is really relevant for audiences of this podcast and, customers of Cordi, because every data team is out there deploying these AI-assisted analysis tools and facing that same like accountability gap, right? Because if the model is flagging something incorrectly, or they miss something that should have been caught, who's signing that letter, right?
I think you put the nail on the head. I mean, and this is like the relationship / trust / sign off leg of the value chain. Ultimately, the work has to have somebody's name on it. If the work has, Ross.ai's name on it, then like that's very different than the work has my name on it. And as people, we have built up architectures of trust and accountability to each other, enforceable accountability to each other over the course of thousands and thousands of years. I mean, like, this is like a lot of the foundations upon which our society is based is the creation of distributed trust mechanisms and ways of developing trust with strangers that allow us to navigate our lives in safety without knowing each and every person of the 8 billion on planet Earth that we're running into. And so injecting AI in the mix and saying, well, now AI is accountable for the output is not something that I don't believe many business leaders are going to be comfortable with for the foreseeable future, unless there is an entity standing behind it that is willing to be sued out of existence in the event that the catastrophic thing happens on the back of the output of that AI. And so this is another aspect of what we're navigating across domains in terms of how can we restructure trust-based businesses, judgment-based businesses, expertise-based businesses to allow for a distributed trust mechanism that is based that allows me to have the level of confidence in this AI output that I used to have in, Ross or Cordine. I think we're pretty far away from a world that looks like that, and I don't expect that to change drastically anytime soon unless there's regulatory intervention. And from where I sit, the regulatory intervention doesn't seem to be excited about removing the barriers to entry for AI to do things that humans are being tasked with doing right now. I would argue that actually the other direction is where it's going, that the protection of the human trust and accountability mechanisms at the expense of AI is really where things stand. And I think that is, we've already sort of hammered out how that works with the software and the software as a service ecosystem. So if it's going to change on the back of AI, I think we're talking about a decades-long transformation, not something that's going to happen in the next 2 to 3 years. So that's at least my viewpoint about where we stand from a trust perspective. It's going to take a long time for those kinds of social structures to transform.
I guess the question is, can we afford to wait that long for those types of social structures to transform? Like, what is the impact of waiting a decade plus for these things to happen? Because everything is moving so fast, and it's totally transforming the industries that we all work in. I guess, from your perspective, when it comes to building out that accountability chain in data systems, with your work with your clients, are you thinking about that as this is best practice, or is this now a requirement?
There's different levels of trust. There's trust that there's the trust for the entire project, the work that we've produced. You trust us to produce that project. But then there's trust in the system that we developed for you. Like from an overall project perspective, we show you who we are every day when we're working with you, and that's like the much more of the human-based trust architecture that I was talking to you about previously. From a systems perspective, the way that we develop trust is by demonstrating reliability in our systems. And the way of demonstrating reliability in a software system, in an AI system, in a data system has been established over the last 30, 50 years as well. It's with lots of testing and evaluation. It's with consistent monitoring and audit logging. It's with reviews with all of the stakeholders to make sure that they understand how the system works and why it works the way it works, and can validate that it fits within the compliance regimes that they're subject to and the security controls that they have in place. And all of that combination of systems reinforcement that allows for transparency and alerting, and also teaching each other how the systems work and how they fit into the overall architecture of the business, that gives everyone the trust and confidence that they need in order to continue investing either with us as an external vendor or in the system and the architecture that they've created for themselves. But none of that is really fundamentally changed by AI in my opinion. In my opinion, AI just lays on top of it, and the way that you demonstrate trust is similarly in reliability, and the way that you demonstrate reliability is with a really strong evaluation set, a really strong benchmark data set that shows you this is what the system does in different circumstances, and allows you to know when you make a change, these are the things that are getting worse and these are the things that are getting better. And all of that work of developing the evaluation data set, and Microsoft and Satya Nadella have been really hammering this home with their recent release of this idea that we're all going to like fine tune our models on like our internal data and on our data mode. But like that evaluation data set that you develop over time as an organization to say, this is the expected behavior. And we know when our systems are abiding by that expected behavior and not abiding by that expected behavior. That's something that takes a lot of time and effort and energy to develop. And it doesn't happen overnight. It happens over the course of a long period of experience. And back to the big four audit firms, this is fundamentally what they should be targeting with their AI hires, is laying that foundation and preparing for a world where more and more tasks are being done by AI, but not we're just automating it and then pretending nobody has to look at it anymore. We're automating it and then we're able to evaluate the outputs. We're able to test it. We're able to draw human attention to where we think the AI is doing something wrong so that we can get more leverage on our humans. They're attending to the things that have to be attended to, and the rest AI can take over. But that's a process that's going to take, years, if not more than 10 years. And what you want is a foundation for growing into that future for your data moat, not to be slowly but surely left behind by other organizations that are building those AI capabilities internally.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it kind of talks to this idea of like advising on disruption whilst you yourself are being disrupted, like everybody, the big four specifically. And, you see this in marketing circles and the marketing industry as well. They're kind of grappling with AI on two fronts. They're trying to implement it themselves internally and figure out how do we reorient our business around this new technology. Meanwhile, how do we help our clients do the same? So they're effectively treating themselves as client zero for this AI transition. And so like how much of the advice that they're giving is ahead of where they themselves actually are. And I guess, for people listening to this, it makes me think like, if firms with these $billion AI transformation budgets are still figuring out, then, your 3-month AI rollout timeline probably needs a bit of revisiting. But what do you think? Are they running before they can walk?
It depends on what task they're trying to automate is really fundamentally it. Like if you can figure out where the highest leverage tasks are in your organization, and you already have the data capture mechanisms in place to understand what the context for those tasks are, then actually like a 3-month rollout for that task seems achievable. But if what you're pitching to yourself or your investors or the public is we're going to reorient our entire business processes around AI within the next 3 months, including all of the tasks and all of our human capital and our business model simultaneously, you're not going to do that. So like what we say to our clients consistently is, let's focus on the highest value use cases up front. Let's demonstrate value on those use cases. And then let's build confidence and capabilities over time. And so that we're not waiting on a transformation miracle that's never going to come, we are taking a stair-step approach and not skipping any steps on the road to the transformation that you want. Because really the transformation is stepping up those 20 steps in a row and doing it in a way that like is thinking intentionally about the future so that in 2 years you're where you want to be, but along the way you're getting the value and you're building the confidence and you're learning the capabilities that you need internally to really ingest the change that you're trying to undergo. So that is our general viewpoint on digital transformation generally and AI transformation specifically. I don't think that the nature of AI projects is fundamentally different than the nature of machine learning projects or data warehousing project or data pipeline projects or decision augmentation projects. Like all of them have this kind of structure that you can develop the foundational capabilities you need as you are demonstrating the highest value use cases you have.
As we look at wrapping up this segment of eventual consistency, I want your hot take. So what does 3 years from now the Big Four firm actually look like? I appreciate you don't have a crystal ball, and I appreciate you reserve the right for this to change, not just in the next year, but in the next 3 weeks. But we're seeing some of these firms moving to more of an obelisk structure. You've got others that are talking about kind of going to a box model where they're trying to match senior and junior headcount more closely. What's your thoughts? Like headcount, ratio of human to AI systems, what a partner is within these firms. 3 years from now, what does Big Four look like?
Yeah, this is really funny because I'm going to give you the coldest ice cold take. I'm going to give you the Arctic take.
I love it.
Because my take is that these firms are going to look roughly similar to the way they do now, with maybe a smaller base and a wider point at the top, but they're not going to look that different because the professional services model has survived for hundreds of years. This is not something that emerged yesterday, although it's been honed over the last, call it 100 years. And there's been waves of technological transformation that have come previously that have caused people to believe that that job roles like audit are going to go away, or going to be fundamentally transformed. Like if you think about like the auditor of 100 years ago, we already moved from a world where mental math was the thing that was most important to being an auditor to something that was much closer to law, like something more procedural, legal compliance oriented. You understand the way that that financial structures work and the language of finance. Now, mental math still helps with intuition, and AI is going to help with procedural, legal, and compliance knowledge in the same way that computers and calculators helped with mental math. But fundamentally, the integration across all of these different capabilities is the reason why you want to human there in the first place, in addition to the accountability structure that needs to exist for audit to be an industry in the first place. So my viewpoint is this is changing the nature of jobs across industries, in professional services, in audit in particular. But the rebundling of tasks is not going to make the structure of the organization look that different as long as audit remains a Credence good. If audit is no longer a Credence good, then you're going to see companies that are 90% software, 10% auditors. You're going to see all different sorts of organizational structures. But my bet is 3 years from now, the Big Four are still doing what they're doing because they've been doing it for a long time.
It's time for my favorite part of Eventual Consistency, which is learning about what you have been watching since our last episode, Ross, in the world of AI, data, and technology. So what's caught your eye?
Yes, I'm going to switch gears here because, what I've been watching is the NBA playoffs. And I love the NBA. I've always loved basketball. I've never been as good at basketball as I've wanted to be. But, being a data science person who also loves basketball, it's fun to watch a sport that is so analytically rich. And I just think there's so many metaphors from the NBA that are relevant to everything that we talk about in the AI and data landscape. And really, it's just, you see 5 players on the floor who have these different combinations of capabilities and skills. And you can tell when a group of people on the court has a sense of what each other are going to do and can interact seamlessly with each other. And you can also tell when the competitive team recognizes a weak link on the floor from a defensive perspective. And the playoffs always reveal this. There's always somebody who's put in the quote unquote crucible where they're being asked to defend the best player because they're considered to be the worst defender. There's always a situation where we're discovering whether, an emerging star like Victor Wembanyama can step up in the biggest moments and carry his team from an offensive perspective, and how sort of the spatial nature of the floor changes when you have somebody who's nearly 8 feet tall who can protect the rim the way Wembanyama does. I don't have a perfect nugget to share in terms of how this influences the way that you should be doing business today. But I just think that, as humans in organizations, we are constantly looking at each other and trying to understand what are your capabilities today and how do your capabilities complement mine? Are we playing the same position and there's too much overlap in our capabilities for the sum to be great, for the whole to be greater than the sum of its parts? Or are we complementing each other so that we're able to cover more territory as partners in order to do more as a team than we could do as individuals? Do I need you as my colleague to be able to hit that shot for us to be able to win as an organization? And how can I put you in a position to succeed based on the strengths you have? And how can I give you the confidence to hit the shots that you're good at by the way that we structure our offense or our defense? So I love thinking about these things, and I have to be honest about what I'm watching, which is the NBA playoffs. And so, since I have a microphone in front of me, I hope that you have a chance to watch the NBA playoffs as well. It's something I really enjoy.
Incredibly well put. And if you had to call the championship, who's taking it home this year?
Gosh,
go on.
It's impossible. The Knicks are peaking at the right time. The Spurs have just been through a grueling 7-game series with the Thunder, and so if I were giving the edge, I would give the edge to the Knicks. I would say Knicks in 6, like they'll be partying in Madison Square Garden. But honestly, like if Victor Wembanyama finds his footing and is able to stay healthy and be the star that the Spurs need them to be, then the Spurs could very well win the next 4 games in a row. And so really it's just a question of whether the peaking team with more experience in the NBA wins out, or this emerging talent boom in San Antonio is able to win out. So that I'll pick the Knicks, but I know about as much as anybody else, if not less.
So that's a wrap on this one. If there's a frame that I take from this conversation, it's Ross's value chain breakdown: origination, analysis and production, judgment and synthesis, relationship and sign-off. AI is compressing the middle, but it's making the ends more demanding, not less. The question for any data leader right now isn't whether to automate the analysis layer, it's whether you've got the judgment layer ready to absorb what comes out of it. The other thing that stuck with me is the Credence good point. Audit isn't just a service, it's a trust mechanism that society has built up over a very long time. AI doesn't change the nature of that oversight, and probably shouldn't, but the stair-step model that Ross described for AI transformation demonstrate value on the highest leverage tasks first and build confidence, then compound. That's the approach whether you're a Big 4 firm or a 5-person data team. Next episode is coming out in 2 weeks, and in the meantime, if Eventual Consistency is useful to you, share it with someone navigating the same kind of questions that you're looking to answer. And if you want to get in touch with the Cordine team, you can find them at cordine.com. That's CORRDYN.com. We'll see you on the next one.